Did at any point you personally go too far in dealing with a suspect?
Yeah, there were probably times where I was rougher than I needed to be. You know, I remember personally one time, you know, I'm not a racist, but I remember one time being so frustrated with a situation, I used a racial term, and you know, I was ashamed of it, and you know, I apologized to it because it was overheard by another individual. But you know, that's the environment of police work. You're dealing with human beings, and so there's going to be human error. But it wasn't racially driven as much as maybe you might perceive it to be.
What term did you use?
Like you said.
Oh, okay. Were you talking to a suspect, or give us the context? What were you doing when you said nigga?
This kid was a teenager. Turned out he was probably about 19 years old. I was standing next to my police car, and he came around a corner. It was just a prank. He threw an egg and hit me. I was in uniform with an egg, and he turned around and ran down an alley, and I was chasing him. And he got to a fence, and he was a young kid, and I've got all this gear on, so it was clear that he was going to get away. And I was frustrated. He got over a fence, and I realized, okay, I'm not going to catch this kid. And I yelled something inappropriate to him. I said, keep running, you know. I said, keep running, you know. And then I turned around, and my partner who was standing there, a guy named Kevin, he's African-American. And I turned around, and he's just looking at me like, really, Greg? And I was like, dude, man, I'm so sorry. I'm just frustrated. And, you know, we're still friends today. And the next day I apologized again in the locker room. And he said, Greg, you know I know you. You're no racist. You know, sometimes your emotions get the best of you, and, you know, you're frustrated with a situation. And, you know, that's your way of kind of venting. Was it inappropriate? Yeah. Was it racist? No.
And for our listeners out there who might be saying, you know, I appreciate the candor, Mr. Kading, but I do not understand how that is not racist. Can you give us the explanation for why that incident is not racist? Because
I'm not a racist. And in order for that to be a racist statement, I have to be a racist.
What does one have to do to qualify as being a racist?
To perceive somebody or view somebody based on race as a lesser valued human being.
Don't you think you did that in that example? Because it seems like you called that person like if the kid who hit you with an egg, right? Mm-hmm. You said it was a kid, he hit you with an egg, same prank, exact same prank. Like he hits you with an egg, runs over the fence. If that kid is not white, I cannot imagine any circumstance where you call that white kid a can you?
Well, I wouldn't have called a white kid a
okay.
Term that, you know, I was intending to say something offensive. I was frustrated with the situation. I was mad at this kid.
Yes, you were. Oh, my goodness. Mr. Kading. Wait a minute. I want to make sure I heard you correct. You set me straight if I didn't hear you right. You said you weren't attempting to say something offensive. Did you just say that?
No, I said I was attempting.
Okay. You said you were attempting to say something offensive, right?
Right, yes.
And you used a term that is specific, I would say explicitly restricted for non-white, I would say most of the time, black people, like 90% of the time, someone who's black. I mean, you could have called him anything. You could have called him anything, right? If you just wanted to call him an offensive name, you could have chose a number of just, you know, you could have just cursed at him, right? And called it a day. But you called him. And why do you think you went for that term specifically? Because that's something that's going specifically.
I just explained to you. I was frustrated with the kid, and I said something in order to offend, and I don't know that there's anything more offensive than that. But I'm not. It was a racial term. It probably is perceived as a racial act, but it wasn't because I'm not a racist. I turned around, I realized the mistake I made, I apologized to somebody else who would have been offended by it, and it was a mistake. But I think for it to have actually meant that, you know, to be racist, then I would have had to intend, I'm sorry, let me turn that back around, for it to have been a racial act, I need to be a racist, and I'm not.
Wow.